Well, let's take you live to the airport and get the latest on the Institute of Fiscal Policy report.
It is entitled Agriculture and Land Use in Ghana, 1962. 26 chapters on anything that you see on our land surface. And that informed the 7-year development plan, where industries were cited with agricultural raw material base. So if we are even importing cocoa sacks from Bangladesh, then you can see the rice dimension. So ladies and gentlemen, let's give rapt attention to the presenter. Let's take notes and educate ourselves, and also incite and excite ourselves so that we carry the advocacy beyond the confines of IFS. Thank you very much. Mr. MC, you told me I should give back the mic to you. I'm doing so.
I did. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chairman, for your remarks. Thank you so much. And thank you once again, invited guests. Before I invite our first presentation, which will be a short one and a prelude to the main presentation, I'd like to acknowledge a couple of guests in our midst. The obvious one, Dr. Kwabena Dufour, was the founder and president of the Institute for Fiscal Studies, also a former governor of the Bank of Ghana, and the former Minister of Finance and Economic Planning of the Republic of Ghana. Founder, more than half of Ghanaians living today were born after you had left the Bank of Ghana. Well, yeah. So it's worth reminding the audience. We also have in our midst, I believe, Her Excellency Mariana Gonçalves Madeira, the Ambassador of Brazil to Ghana. Thank you very much, Madam. Thank you very much for your attendance. And Madam, I'd like to say our invitation to your office was deliberate. We picked Brazil because we thought Brazil is a developing economy like Ghana, with a reputation also in agriculture, and it's a country we can learn from and share lessons with. So the choice of Brazil among the many possible missions to invite was deliberate. Thank you very much for honoring our invitation, Madam. I believe we also have heads of public agencies here. I am aware the CEO of the National Food Buffer Stock Company is here. We're grateful for your presence, sir. You were one of the first invited guests to respond to our invitation. We're thankful. Okay, at this point, I will invite my colleague, Mr. Fred Amu, for the first presentation. In carrying out the rice study, and as we reviewed and analyzed the issues in the sector, we decided to have a feel of the issues on the ground. Therefore, a team was sent to the Volta and Oti regions to engage with some rice farmers there and to sort of report on the issues and challenges that they heard from the rice farmers. So the next presentation, which will be a short one, will take us through the issues that our team heard from rice farmers and millers in actual fact in some of these places. So Mr. Frederick Amu, who is a research assistant for the Institute, please stand for a presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Leslie. So this presentation is a preliminary. Thank you once again. This presentation is a preliminary presentation, and it is going to be very, very brief. It is a summary of the issues from engagement with rice producers and millers in the Volta and OT region. From the 18th to the 12th of September 2025, we went to the Volta region, specifically K2 North, South Tong, and then Central Tong. And then we went to the OT region. We covered Santrokofe and Akpafu Odome in the Guan district of the OT region. To start with, the question is, why the Volta region? According to the Ministry of Food and Agriculture Rice Strategic Brief report, the Volta region accounted for about 40% of local rice production in Ghana. They produced about 345 metric tons of paddy rice or local rice in the country. And this made them, or this had a critical, they have a critical role in transforming the rice sector because of this significant percentage they carry in rice production. Moving on. The purpose of the study or the field work was to examine production, milling, and marketing conditions of rice in these two regions. And also, we wanted to identify challenges faced by these rice producing farmers and the millers. Of course, I have mentioned the areas we visited, and so I will move on to the challenges. The first challenge we found when we spoke to these farmers was on land access and the land tenure. Of course, farmers we interacted with were faced with high rent, especially farmers in the Volta region, in the K2 North region. About 2/3 of farmers in K2 North we spoke with are facing high rent challenges, and also short lease duration, because they engage with landowners, and at the end of every 2 years, which they prefer would be more, but landowners say at the end of every 2 years they renew their contract, and of course renewing of contract comes with a higher price. And then another problem regarding the land tenure system or the land tenure is conflict with these landlords. Because prices won't remain the same, they tend to fight landlords. And if the farmer, the rice producing farmer, if you can't stand or you can't pay, then you would have to vacate the land. This challenge is one of the biggest challenges they face. Another challenge is with regard to the seed use and the access. Rice farmers we spoke to have easy access to the seeds. The availability is there, but high prices come in play. About Also, about 2/3 of the rice farmers in the central Tong and K2 North and also South Tong complained about high prices of the seeds they use in rice. However, farmers in K2 North, farmers in Santrokofe and Akpafu Odome they do a model they call the recycling of seeds, where they replant their harvested rice. So they don't really have a problem with high price of the seeds. Occasional availability of the seeds is also a problem. Sometimes they go and the seeds that they prefer. During our interactions, we came across a seed they call the X-Biker seed and also the Togo Masha seeds. These were the two seeds that they mostly prefer because of the higher yield it commands. Another challenge is fertilizer and chemicals, the cost of fertilizer and chemicals they use in their planting. The high cost of fertilizers is a problem to almost all farmers we spoke to during our visit. Availability of fertilizer, it is easily accessible and available. Your pocket show how much fertilizer you can get. But of course, high prices won't allow you to get enough for your farm. In fact, farmers in Santrokofe and Akpafu Odome barely use fertilizers because of the affordability of it. They can't afford fertilizers. And we interacted with one woman who mentioned she goes or she prefers using the uncle's cocoa fertilizer to spray on her rice because of high cost that it comes with. And then the fake fertilizer product is also a problem, a challenge. Okay, now the farming methods is another challenge because combination of manual labor and mechanization, people or farmers, rice farmers we spoke to, made us aware that manual labor compared to machine in farming, manual labor is relatively expensive compared to the machine. And then we move on to ask them, do you solely want or would you solely prefer a machine if you had the means? They said yes, why not? They would prefer machine if they have the means. These reflect aspirations toward modernization, although financial and infrastructure barriers prevent full adoption. Another problem or another challenge we face with our engagement with these rice farmers is a marketing challenge. This marketing challenge translates into high cost that these rice farmers mostly bear when they are transporting their rice produce to the final consumers. Sometimes they would have to split the cost of transport because when they transport this produce to these consumers, it commands high prices. So they would sometimes have to take most of the transport costs themselves. Another pressing challenge is competition from imported rice. Most farmers we visited or we interacted with had rice stock left from last year. And the reason is that the consumers or people they sell to tell them that they still have other imported rice in their store, or they have it in bulk, and so they would have to make away with it or sell it before they can come back to them and purchase from them. And so the competition from imported rice is a critical issue. Farmers or rice farmers also face the problem of not enough buyers. Few buyers patronize their produce. Another problem is delayed payments. Farmers complain bitterly, especially farmers in K2 North. They complain bitterly about selling their local rice to consumers, retailers, wholesalers, and then sometimes the deal is for the wholesalers or for these retailers to go and sell and bring them the rice and bring them the money. Of course, if I haven't sold your rice, I wouldn't be able to pay you. So the delayed payments affect their it affects their production also. Another challenge that farmers across all the places we visited is low prices. Farmers made us aware, or rice farmers made us aware, that sometimes their produce comes with low prices, or consumers, retailers come to their farms and strike a deal with them also. And then they would have to settle for less. Sometimes they barely break even from their produce. Okay. So sometimes they settle for less, and then, of course, you would have to let the rice go. Eventually, you would have to let the rice go. So they sometimes settle for less. Another challenge faced by these rice producing farmers we interacted with is the issue of mechanization and then the land preparation. High cost associated with labor is a problem. Significant amount of farmers we interacted with said they would also, of course, they can't solely rely on mechanization. They prefer to add some labor to or in the process of farming, because that helps them a lot, and that helps them to know, that helps them to prepare their lands, and it ultimately commands more yields. The unavailability of farming machines is also a problem, especially in the Guan district. The two places we visited in the Guan district, which is Santrokofi and Akpafu Odome. These farmers, or these rice farmers in these areas, had little to no machines in farming. They mostly use labor, or the manual way at large. Okay. Continuing the challenges. Another challenge with regards to the irrigation is the broken canals. These canals on my right-hand side is on the Agali Plikpa Dam in the K2 North. This dam has been out of use for decades, and the Agali Plikpa Dam irrigates about 900 hectares of farmland. If this canal, of course, this canal is not working, and so water from the dam floods this farm lands, and that becomes a problem. Another canal that is broken and it has been out of use for decades is the Tadiafuni Depo Dam, which has also extremely deteriorated and it has been out of use for quite some time. Mainly, farmers in the Akpafu Odome rely on the rains to water their rice. When you plant and you rely on nature, which is sometimes uncertain, nature will disappoint you sometimes, and this ultimately leads to poor harvest, and it affects your profit margin. Moving on, the issue of harvest, post-harvest handling, and storage. Farmers complain about high cost in harvesting. Of course, we know harvesting involves reaping, threshing, cleaning, field drying, and then bagging. Farmers we spoke to found harvesting to be extremely costly to them. The unavailability of dryers also is a challenge because during our interaction, I got to find out that the moisture content of rice commands your yield when it is being milled. This is quite interesting because the moisture content of rice will give you the appropriate long grain rice and also the broken rice. So the unavailability of dryers is a problem to farmers because at the end of the day, I know that I have cultivated more produce on maybe 1 hectare of land. And of course, because I don't have dryers, when I take it to the miller, I get less bags than I would. Another problem that farmers we interacted with faced is storage access and availability, especially those in Akpafu, Odome, and Santrokofe. They mostly store their produce in their rooms. They share the room with the rice bags. It's a makeshift system that they do because they don't have any community warehouse storage system. They don't have any personal storage or personal warehouse storage system. And so they mostly share their rooms where they sleep with this rice that they harvest from their farms. This is a problem. And this commands post-harvest losses because the rice needs good amount of ventilation, and also the mold and moisture level of the rice should be intact to command a very high yield when they take it to the millers. So this is a problem to the people in Akpafu and Santrokofe. However, people in K2 North, Central Tong, and South Tong barely had a problem with warehouse system because the community had a warehouse system where they mostly store their rice. And the warehouse system is in good condition. This picture we are looking at is the warehouse system in Depo, where farmers store their harvested rice, their harvested paddies, and it is in a good condition. I move on to the rice millers operation. During our visit, we visited about four rice millers, namely Spring Agro Industries Limited, Gadco, which happened to be a subsidiary of RMG, and also Festa Rice, and a small-scale rice miller in Santrokofe, who mill rice and charges at a fee of 40 Ghana cedis per 150 kg of rice when he mills it. Together, the first 3 rice milling companies each operate with a milling capacity of approximately 40 metric tons per day. The question is, are they getting enough paddy to mill in a day? And the answer is no. In fact, during our visit, Gadco wasn't in operation. Gadco was down in operation. Nothing was working there. When I say nothing was working in Gadco, I mean there was no milling going on because there were not enough paddies for them to mill. Now, the challenges identified with these rice millers or these rice milling companies is high energy cost. During our interaction with Spring Agro, they made us aware that on a good month or in a good month, they mostly pay more than 100,000 Ghana cedis in electricity. Yes. And the low quality of paddy is also a problem to millers because a farmer thinks his or her paddy rice will command higher yield after milling. But when these millers test the moisture contents of these rice, and after milling, the number of bags actually is not what the farmers would imagine it to be. Now, the costly spare parts of milling machines is also a problem to these millers. They mostly import their spare parts from outside. Oh, let me touch on this. Another problem from the millers is competition from imported rice. So the problem of competition from imported rice cut across. It is also a problem of the farmers and a problem of the millers. So this competition is also a challenge to the rice millers. In conclusion, the local rice production holds strong potential, but faces significant bottlenecks. Farmers are capable because they told us themselves that they are capable of producing rice, although they are constrained by land, seed, fertilizer, irrigation, mechanization issues. Millers, on the other hand, operate below capacity, way below capacity. And also, public policy action is required to help address these challenges and transform the sector. I would like to bring my presentation to an end. It's a brief preliminary